I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to Board Game Breakfast. It's another week now. I remember distinctly in the past where I'd be like, a Monday in February. But it's so exciting. Lots of things to talk about. Man, we got news and, all sorts of things. One thing we want to do is we want to talk about a couple things. First of all, last week we started Dice Tower Facebook group. So if you want to be part of that, just apply to join and we'll add you. Lots of talking. This group expanded. I think it's probably hit 3,000 members by this point. So lots of great board game conversation, just hanging out with people there. Eric Summer is going to be a special guest at Grand Con this year. So if you're heading up to Michigan and want to go to Grand Con, you'll have a chance to see him and hopefully play games with him at that convention. So with all that being said, it's time now to talk about board game news. I do want to point out one thing before we get into board game news. This week, I will be doing my question and answer, my Q&A, not on Monday. That will be going out later this week, so we'll talk about it then. Because right now, as you're watching this, I am in Canada. I'm flying up to do some videos with Plan B Games, see some of their new stuff that's coming out just for a couple days, and then coming back. So hopefully I'll have some videos and some upcoming stuff when that's finished. All right, now, let's get to it. Okay, lots of news to talk about. First of all, USAopoly is doing a Wrinkle in Time daring adventure game. This is it's based, there's a new movie coming out, so that's the whole point of this. It's talking about, it's an educational game using the STEM system. I haven't found many pictures of the game. I know that the pieces in the game are supposedly from the movie. I hope it's good. It's been so long since I've even read the book A Wrinkle in Time. I have a hard time remembering what the book's even about or the movie. I'm sure the movie will be very popular. We'll wait and see. Critical Mass. This is the next, or one of the next Dice Tower Essentials games. This is coming out, I believe, at Origins 2018 from Kevin Chang. This is a game that we've been sitting on for a while, and they've been working on it and balancing it all. It's two mechs where you fight each other, and each player has a mech, and in this game, you're going to have different combat cards, and you are basically playing a combat card at the same time as the other person, trying to play a faster weapon or just trying to outthink the other person. But as the game goes by, you'll be able to add other cards to your hand and kind of customize your mech. It's a pretty cool game. Catacombs Conquest is coming out. This is another one from the designer of both Catacombs and Castles and Catacombs. This is a versus game. It sounds from the description exactly the same as Castles and Catacombs. And I don't know if it says it's a standalone game. Maybe it's a sequel, or I don't know if they work together or not. I think it's the same thing, but there's two different teams. Croak-A-Curl is becoming popular in Canada. I mention this on behalf of Eric, who really likes curling. And this is like curling with a crokinole board. I'm sure someone will play this at some convention somewhere if it's cold enough. Let's see. Warhammer Cafes are being announced from Games Workshop. They're going to be opening up in North America somewhere. We don't know where. We don't know much about them, except there'll be a place to play games. There'll be painting stations and stuff. Sounds like a dream come true for some, modelers. Sounds like a great place to hang out. We'll find out once they announce where it is. Eggert Spiel's announced a couple things. Coimbra. This is a dice drafting game. It looks like a fairly large style game. Hopefully this is one of the ones I get a chance to play over the next couple days, and I'll tell you guys what I think of it. And a new expansion, a Great Western Trail, Rails to the North, adds more railroad tracks and things like that to the game. Fantasy Flight Game has released some Star Wars Destiny cases. I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars Destiny. I think it's an okay game, but these cases look great. I'd love to have something like this if I owned a game, I'd get these in a second. Holds the dice and the cards, really cool. Trans-Europa and Trans-America are being released in one package, Trans-Europa from Ravensburger. It's kind of a deluxe version with nicer pieces. These are two train connection games from the past. A lot of people really enjoyed them. And also, they're coming out with a Jurassic Park game, Jurassic Park Danger. So the dinosaur Jurassic Park thing is definitely one of the hot trends for games to come out with in the future. Queen has announced a new couple games franchise. I don't have a picture for that one, but Luxor here. This one looks really interesting. It's by Rudiger Dorn, and he makes some excellent games. And Zoc has a game called Minera. This is a game that when I first saw it, I was like, I've seen this before, Villa Paletti, which Zoc did, and it actually won the Spiel des Jahres. But that was just a dexterity game. That's all that was. This looks like a dexterity game, but it's cooperative, so that sounds pretty interesting. And then the biggest news of the week, and perhaps of the year so far, is Asmodee. And you're like, what? What they buy now? Well, they bought Lookout. Now, Lookout was owned by Mayfair Games. Mayfair bought Lookout a few years ago, and then Asmodee bought Catan. Mayfair has had several branches in it for a while. They've had their own games, which, if I asked you to name several, you might not be able to do. But way back in the day, Mayfair has been around for 36 years. They've done games like the Cran Rail games. A lot of people know those games. They did a lot of train games, and they've done various other games over the years. But when they got the English license to Catan, that was a really big deal. Their company grew. They've had a big presence at conventions, and a lot of it was based on Catan and the different spin-offs and different versions of Catan. As this has gone through and all these things, and they have acquired Lookout Games, they also acquired Twilight Creations. Well, as of now, Twilight Creations has gone back to the owner, Carrie Breitenstein, and so Twilight Creations is its own company again. Mayfair sold Catan to Asmodee, and now Asmodee has essentially bought the rest. They bought all the existing Mayfair inventory, but they mostly bought Lookout Games, which over the past couple of years has been essentially everything that Mayfair's been printing. If you're not familiar with Lookout Games, we're talking about Agricola, Caverna, the Rosenberg-style games. A lot of those games that I've been reviewing lately, Riverboat and things like that, they're Lookout Games. So Mayfair is pretty much dissolved at this point. The people who were running Mayfair, I think maybe some of them are going under Asmodee. I'm not really quite clear on how that's working, but it's becoming another brand under the giant company of Asmodee. Now, I'm still not worried for the hobby, folks. Okay, even though Asmodee is buying all the biggest companies, there's still hundreds and hundreds of board game companies. Go to any convention and you'll see that. But there's not a lot of huge companies left, right? There is still big. We got Steve Jackson, and we have CMON, and Renegade is getting larger. And, there's other bigger companies. But, like, for four presents at a convention, there was a big spot for Mayfair, a big spot for Asmodee, a big spot for Fantasy Flight Games. That's all the same now. And all the hottest games in the business, the ones that seem to do the best other than the Kickstarter games, are Asmodee. What does this mean for the future? I don't know, but this was pretty big. And we have to give a lot of props to Mayfair. I haven't liked all their games over the years, but I'll tell you what, Mayfair has done a lot for the hobby. It's because of Mayfair that hobby games exist in America. So for everyone who was involved in Mayfair, there's been many people over the years. Even Jay Tomlinson was with Mayfair a while before he spun off and started Rio Grande Games. I salute them. I thank them for what they've done for the hobby, and we'll see what happens in the future. All right. Well, with that being said, it's time now to go to Kickstarter news, something Asmodee does not yet own.
Happy breakfast, everybody. Let's see if we can piece together some interest in our crowdfunding projects today. Pulp Detective is a solo game in which you take on the role of a detective solving a big case. There are also 2-player rules included that provide a cooperative or competitive mode as well. Each detective has a unique ability, adding variety to the gameplay, and there are 3 levels of difficulty based on stamina within the game. You only have so much time to solve the case before it goes cold, and for some nice hand management, each round you draw 3 cards, keep 1, discard 1, and return 1 to the deck as you work to find clues to ultimately solve the case. There are at least 3 different cases to solve in the base box, although more have been already added through stretch goals, and Pulp Detective uses art from real pulp novels from back in like the 1930s and 40s, which really ups the thematic feel. And if that's not enough, you can also add on the Double Cross and Masterminds expansion that includes more cases, funny sidekicks, and double cross cards. You can get the base game for a pledge of just $19 plus shipping, or for $29 plus shipping, you get Pulp Detective and its expansion. In prehistory, you control a prehistoric tribe trying to survive and thrive in the Stone Age. Designed by the creator of Ave Roma, prehistory leans towards the heavier side with tight resource management, multiple actions, and difficult choices. In the spring season, resources are used for actions like hunting, fishing, or gathering, or ceremonies. But to take those actions, you also have to donate from your stock of resources. And players will actually get those resources back from the donations, but there's a nice twist of being in reverse player order. And then those become action markers for the summer season. But with all of that, you have to manage your supply carefully because you also need to expand your territory and tribe. If going way, way back in history intrigues you for a game, a copy of Prehistory takes a pledge of €50 plus shipping. From the publisher of Cytosis comes Subatomic, an atom-building board game. Genius Games prides itself on basing their games in solid science, and Subatomic is no exception. This is a deck-building game with some area control that has you playing with up and down quarks and wave duality cards to form protons, neutrons, and electrons, which all have emoji-like expressions. You'll use your cards to combine into more powerful cards or to build up your atom. And ultimately, players work to form atoms and elements to score endgame points with some scoring twists. If you want a copy of this scientifically sound deck-building game, you can get Subatomic for a pledge of $29 plus shipping. And last but not least, the heavy Euro-style game CO2 is coming back into print. This is an ecologically minded game in which players control energy companies working towards meeting sustainable energy demands. And while it's a competitive game to make the most money from green energy, everyone can lose the game if fossil fuels take over, leading to global pollution. Designed by Vital Lacerda, CO2 is a brain burner, and this new edition features new iconography, rebalanced and streamlined gameplay, and a new events deck. But CO2's Second Chance also includes a brand new cooperative mode in which players work together to save the world, but it also uses secret goals to help mitigate all-for-gamer challenges. If you're ready for the CO2 challenge, you can get a copy for a pledge of €65 plus shipping. Alrighty, that's all I've got for you this episode. Hopefully something caught your eye. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week.
What do you do when the president's beard puts you out of business? Why, start a board game company, of course. Board games throughout history. Hello, once again, I am Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, coming at you with another installment of Board Games Throughout History, where we take a look at games that have either had a significant impact on gaming culture or just very old. Well, today, we will be talking about Milton Bradley's The Checkered Game of Life, later known simply as The Game of Life, a game in which players follow the unpredictable winding course of one's life, made possible by the unpredictable winding course of the life of the game's designer, Milton Bradley. Be a winner of the Game of Life. Back in the 1860s, Mr. Bradley was a draftsman, running a successful lithography business. In fact, at the time, games were the furthest thing from his mind, as he was too busy selling copies of his top-grossing lithograph featuring a fresh-faced presidential candidate named Abraham Lincoln. Unfortunately, the bottom soon fell out of the Abraham Lincoln lithograph market after the great emancipator here decided to grow himself a beard. No longer able to sell images of a chin-bear politician, Milton Bradley decided to start a board game empire. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, it's my ludicrosity alarm. That is officially the most ridiculous statement I have ever uttered. Milton Bradley's first board game design was The Checkered Game of Life, in which players moved a piece across a checkerboard-like path with squares that would affect the player's status. For example, the space labeled Industry would reward the player with wealth, and gambling spaces would lead to ruin, and Intemperance would lead the player to poverty. It slowly morphed into the colorful, multi-path version that we know today. But not before its original version would go on to sell over 40,000 copies in the 1860s. Milton Bradley didn't let the opportunity pass him by to get the most out of his checkered game of life. But not only did his game design make a significant impact on history, but what he did with the game did as well. As an advocate for children's education, Milton Bradley supplied kindergartens with educational toys, even at the expense of his own company's profits. And after years of putting his own company at risk for the betterment of kindergarten programs, his efforts began to take root late in his life as a growing number of teachers began to finally embrace the concept of educational play. So, whether you like life or think it's a waste, well, at least you can take comfort in the fact that the designer of life didn't waste his.
Okay, so what's coming from the Dice Tower this week? Well, the biggest thing is probably our review today, where Sam and I are going to take a look at Star Wars Legion, the Star Wars miniatures game. So that's coming. We also have a lot of other reviews that are coming this week. I'm going to be doing some single top 10 lists on my own this week. I'll be taking a look at my top 10 sports games, my top 10 racing games, and my top 10 abstract strategy games. And then, of course, I'll be continuing my best of designer lists. And like I said, different reviews will be posting throughout the week. So keep an eye out for that. Board Game Blender is going up this week. So that's coming out on Thursday. And just like I said, we're going to be continuing to put out videos each and every day. And I'll hope to have some videos from when I go up to Canada. If I get any of those, I'll bring them back and post those also. Alrighty, let's keep going.
Hello guys, I am Cardboard Rhino and welcome to Rhino Says Yes. Today I brought one of my favorite thematic games as a great example of capturing the essence of revenge movies. It's Vengeance. In Vengeance, you take on the role of one of the heroes that has been wronged, bashed, and tortured by some nasty gang members. In the game, you need to build up your abilities in order to take your revenge from these guys and score the most points. The game flow follows a movie structure and starts with the wronging, in which players choose and play the bad guys who caused them pain and messed up their stats that they will later on need to find somewhere in these dens and kill them. Then we have 3 acts, with phases of montage and combat alternating. Combat is the juicy part of the game where you go through action-packed fighting sequences of dice combat. After choosing the den with your targeted boss, you have 3 dice rolls in total, during which you need to enter, kill the boss, and get out without too much damage. You need to try to make the best use of your abilities, which allow you to swap the dice results and make combinations with them for a more favorable outcome. During the montage, you can heal your damages, you get ability and item upgrades, and you can find out where each gang boss is hiding. The way to score points is mainly from the bosses and from clearing an entire den of enemies, as well as from missions and achievements. There is a lot of meaningful choices during the game, such as which bosses to target, how to handle the dice puzzle that is the combat, whether to go for the risky option and hope for the best, or to try to minimize your damage because there is another back-to-back combat coming. Also, the fight scenes play out very vividly in players' minds because of the very well-designed combat system, the miniatures, and also the ability upgrades featuring unique moves. Overall, what I enjoyed the most about the game is that it actually makes you care about getting revenge for your character, and it makes you feel like a total badass action hero. So Rhino says yes to Vengeance. You should totally give it a try.
Hi, Mike Delisio from Solomode Games. This week I have a question that applies not only to solitaire games, but also to cooperative games. The question is, how difficult of an experience are you looking for? Many times when people are playing a cooperative game or a solitaire game, if they win on their first attempt, they feel like perhaps there's something wrong with the game. It's too easy, I've solved it. Luckily, with many of these games, you've got increasing levels of difficulty that you could pretty easily adjust to make the game harder, and then perhaps you might be more interested in playing it. For myself, I like a challenge, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm done with the game if I've beaten it the first time, especially if there are ways to make it a little bit more difficult. I also don't necessarily mind if the game is really, really tough and I have not beaten it. A perfect example of that is Ghost Stories. I've owned that game for years and I have never beaten it. I think I've come close a couple times. I've had the Wu Fang come out and gotten obliterated. I've never beaten it on the iPad, and I've never beaten it with the cardboard version, but yet I still enjoy the game. I have seen that some people have put out strategy guides and things along those lines for Ghost Stories specifically, but I've actually gone out of my way to not read those. I don't want the puzzle solved for me, so to speak. I want to try to muddle through it on my own. Other games, like Flip Ships, I win much more often than I lose, and I haven't really felt the need to up the difficulty because I just like the experience, I like the mechanisms, I like flipping the ships. I don't necessarily feel like I need to have this really brutal experience with that particular game. So I think it depends for me on the type of game. What does it depend on for you? Do you always want a tough, difficult experience when you're playing solo or a cooperative game? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you have to think. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Hey there, it's Jen, the board game librarian, flipping some pages and pushing some cubes. I'm here today to talk about a sci-fi adventure classic, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, written by Douglas Adams. I listened to this last summer as an audiobook for a book club that I run at my library. Two of our librarians there had been urging me for years to read it, and I'm glad I did. And here's why. It's ridiculous, it's zany, it's hilarious, and it's just Douglas Adams at his best, right? So you're wondering, Jen, there's so many serious sci-fi board games, space-themed board games out there. What could you possibly put the two together? Well, of course, it's gotta be Galaxy Trucker. Published by Czech Games Edition and designed by Vlada Chvátil. It's almost like Vlada was channeling Douglas Adams, don't you think? Because it's equally as ridiculous and zany and humorous as Hitchhiker's Guide. Real-time gameplay for 2 to 4 people lasting 60 minutes. You're building the ship in real time, trying to create the best and most beautiful ship that won't or will be destroyed by space pirates. You're getting hit by asteroids, you're encountering empty space, and kind of chugging along at the end, hoping you have something, if anything, that you can present at the end. Love Galaxy Trucker, although it can be quite polarizing in the gaming community, and that's why I love the two of these together. I'm Jen, from the page to the table, and I'll see you next time.
Two brothers set loose in a thrift store. This is Thrift Store Throwbacks.
What's up, everybody? We are the Brothers Murph. We're going to do something a little bit different this week.
That's right, we're gonna do like a live gameplay type stuff.
We don't have much time, so let's get to it. Nick, what are we playing?
Scrabble word sentence building game thing. Sentence cube game.
And look how much fun they're having. Ooh.
Oh my
So this is a game where you're basically going to roll these dice. And usually you go one at a time. You're going to roll dice that have a bunch of words on them. You have to try to make sensible sentences. The longer, the better. And you have to build them crossword style where things connect. But we're going to do it where we play all of it together at the same time. It's going like this. So Nick and I are just going to try to start building stuff. Let's see what we come up with. Okay, her face ran. Yep, that's a sentence. That's a sentence.
Heart, stop.
Her face.
Bad.
Her face ran and saw. That's interesting. So now if I want to connect off this, I have to do with her smell.
Bad like clean lap, obviously.
With her smell, it's not that. So that's a sentence, legally, I guess, whether or not it should be.
Where can they lap? Let heart.
Ran from lady. You get the idea. So
Let heart.
The point is you're trying to make these words, and the longer your sentence,
Let heart.
the more. Dang, that's deep. The longer your sentence, the more points you get. You're basically going to square. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be 6 times 6 is 36 points.
But if I got 7,
I would get a bonus 50 points for that. And if I use all of these cubes, I would get another bonus 50 points. The thing I like about this game is this implies that people played one half of one turn and then threw the game away.
I love it. But honestly, it's a great little game. It's like Scrabble. It's kind of like Bananagrams in a way of kind of like, what can you make real quick? It's a good little game. Honestly, if you like word games, this is a cool little game for you.
Pre-Bananagrams. And yeah, it's fun. I'm not going to say for sure that we're going to keep it. But, you know, word games are kind of always like decent. There will always be a place for word games.
Yeah.
And I would probably just play Bananagrams, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's better. You can actually play all at the same time versus like watching someone like put together terrible sentences and then wondering about like,
Let's heart.
That hurts my heart to see let heart happen again and again.
That's right.
So that's going to be it for us, folks. Check us out on social media and check out This Game is Broken. Stream with us live on Twitch. There's just so much going on. Just find the Brothers Murph wherever you may and we'll be doing stuff.
Yeah.
So until next time, we'll find you in a bucket full of hot nonsense words.
Let heart.
Howdy folks, welcome to By the Numbers. My name is Hunter Thomason from the Family Showdown. On By the Numbers, we take on a numeric board game related topic. This week's topic is the Board Game Geek rankings, top heavy. Board Game Geek is a massive database of games. They rank games in many different ways. One of the ways they rank games is by weight. By weight we mean how difficult a game is to learn, play, teach, that sort of thing. They rank that weight on a scale of 1 to 5. You, the people, get to vote on that weight. And it ranges from games with at least 100 votes. From a 1, the Game of War, the card game we've all played as kids, Just above that is Chutes and Ladders at a 1.01. I'm a little concerned for the 2 people that voted it a 2. All the way up to Advanced Squad Leader at a 4.7. I want to know what kind of games these people that are playing that voted it a 1. You take a look at this handy dandy chart, you see that it's very slanty, which means the Board Game Geek rankings is definitely top heavy. But why? Are heavier games inherently better? Some might argue that, but I think the fun factor should be the definitive reason for ranking a game high. So why is the Board Game Geek top heavy? Are heavier gamers just more passionate about their games and they vote them up? Possibly, that might be it. Passion does lead to motivation.
I was like, yeah!
That leads to action. That leads to... So why do you think the Board Game Geek rankings is top heavy? Leave the comments down below, and maybe I'll highlight one of your comments in a future episode. Thanks for watching.
Now, there's a lot of, I get a lot of negative feedback on my games, and, you know, how you treat your games, and I toss my games to the side and stuff. It doesn't really affect the games. If you look at the games behind me, they look fairly nice. Now, every once in a while, you'll find a little nick on them. That doesn't really bother me. But, you know, there's definitely a point of contention, I guess, sometimes. I'm not here necessarily to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the ding and dent type stuff. This has always been a kind of a fascinating thing to me. When you go and you buy a board game and there's a cracked side to it, or there's a small dent in it, or whatever, and then stores will discount these heavily. Why? Because no one seems to want to buy them unless they are discounted. And so I guess my question is to people out there, if you're buying a game with a ding or dent in it, what is the problem with that? Because I've talked to the stores and they'll say people will bring the games back, send the games back over the smallest thing. Like sometimes you have to look and like, is there a dent there? And they send it back. Now I get it, right? I get that you want to have something that looks nice. There's nothing wrong with that. If you get a faulty product, then yes, take it back. I guess what I don't get though is when it's a minor thing. Let's say there's a rip in the insert in the middle that no one's ever going to see anyway. Or there's a side of the box that has a small white mark on it and you can just flip the box over on the other side. Is that big of a deal? Now, the standard response when I say things like this, people are like, Tom, you don't have to buy your games. Well, first of all, I do buy a lot of these games. But secondly, I have a lot of things in my house that get dents and things on them. Like my iPad case gets all scratched up, but I don't really care about it. It's not that big of a deal. My car, if it gets a scratch on it, I don't bother to buff that out because I don't care. I just want a functional car. So this is kind of an open thing in the comments, right? I like to see what you guys think about this. You know, for some people, it's really important to have their stuff look pristine. I guess my question is, though, why? I know why people put sleeves on cards, for example, because you want your cards to, you know, you don't want to be able to tell when you're drawing from cards that what it is on the back, or the cards will wear out over time. Although rarely have I seen a game where the cards were so worn out you couldn't play the game. My Lost Cities, the cards are all beat up, but I can still play the game pretty well. So what is the point of having a pristine collection? Or when someone comes and they might scratch your board, you know, I've seen this happen, people get all panicked. It doesn't seem to affect the enjoyment of the game, for me at least. In fact, a worn game is a loved game. But I know that I'm certainly not in the majority on this one. So in the comments, I'd like you to tell me kind of where you stand on this. Like on a scale of 10, how badly do you care about games? Like a 10, that's very, very, you know, obsessive. No one can have a drink near the table, nothing. I don't want my games, I don't want to scratch. If I get a game that has a little problem with it, I'll consider getting a new box to replace it. If I get a game and inside there was a little, you know, a bag and there was a hole in that bag, I'm sending it back. I'm getting something different. You know, a deformed piece, I'm going to figure out how to fix that piece and send it back. You know, that happens to us. We get the little meeple and there's a broken arm or something on the meeple and like, I'll send that back. That's a 10, right? Nothing. The 1 is an absolute slob and doesn't care about their games at all. I'm not saying we should go that far either. I put myself at a 4, right? I don't really care that much. I want my games to look cool. I want them to look neat. But at the same time, they're just boxes of games. I throw them in the car, throw them here, move them here, whatever. Where do you lie on that scale, right? And why? And does it bother you that other people are the way they are? I don't think it really bothers me if someone wants to keep their games pristine. If I'm bringing a drink and someone's like, no drinks at the table. Okay, well, it's their game, and I completely understand that. But does what other people do with their games, should that affect you? I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting topic. Very much not a controversial... Well, I guess it is controversial, right? But, well, we'll see. Tell me in the comments what you think. Ding and dent, good or bad.
Hey everybody, it's Christina from Girls Game Shelf, and I'm back because it's almost Valentine's Day, and I have some suggestions for games that you might never, ever, under any circumstances, want to play on a date night. Number 1, any kind of cooperative game. I know that might seem counterintuitive because you think co-op games, working together, yeah. But in reality, it is the perfect opportunity for you guys to step on each other's toes and get in each other's way and say things like, hey, don't tell me how to spend my turn. And that's the challenge about cooperative games, is the cooperative part. It's not the easiest part. Number 2, any kind of asymmetrical game. Especially if you and the person you're playing with don't share the same level of board game love, it might be very easy for the other person to think, why did I have to be this part? That part seems so much easier. I feel like I have it so hard. And also in asymmetrical games, there tend to be a lot longer turns for each person and kind of much less interaction time in the middle of that. So what kinds of games should you be playing on a date night? For me, I think games that have some good, light, fun, flirtatious conflict in them, or games that force you to interact with the other player often throughout the game and not kind of sequester you in your own corner to get your own think on away from everybody. Games like King Domino are perfect for a date night. Tile laying games are great because you put your tile down and you could mess each other up a little bit, but you could also help each other if you're feeling romantic. But what if you want something with a little more strategy? What about Targi? Remember that one? That's a great 2-player game where you're doing worker placement and collecting goods by creating these perpendicular lines to get to your good, and there's a robber running all around the board that kind of acts as your timer, and this is probably the worst pitch you've ever heard in your life for Targi, but it's a super fun game. But what if you're going on a double date and you want a group game that still has the same kind of date night feel? This is going to sound crazy, but I really recommend Betrayal at House on the Hill. If you've never watched a horror movie on Valentine's Day, you're missing out. You're welcome for that. So those are my date night suggestions. Please let me know what you'll be playing in the comments below. And Girls Game Shelf is going to be releasing our episode of Fog of Love this week, so check that out if you want, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Hello everyone, my name's Annette, and you may know me as Netters Plays, and today on Applied Mechanics, I'm going to go over the game of Songbirds, or Birdie Fight. So this is a small card game that you can casually play. However, there is a crunchiness to it, and I love how that comes out in the end of the game. So let me show you a little bit about it and why I really like it. So here you have the setup for Songbirds. You have these tokens which are valued between 5 and 15, which you'll randomly lay out 5 here and 5 across. Next you have this deck of cards. You randomly choose one card and you place that into the center. The remaining cards will be divided amongst the players. These cards are valued between 1 and 7, and also they come in 4 different colors. On your turn, you'll simply get one of your cards and then you play it next to or adjacent to another card that's already been played. The next player will also get to play one of their cards down. You continue playing until all the cards are played out. At the end of the game, you should have only one card in hand, and that should be your scoring card. So during scoring, you'll score both the rows and the columns, and they will score you whatever point value is on the token next to it. This horizontal row here, it will score based on which birds have been played in that row. You count up the value for each color. The winner of this row is blue because they have 6 points. Therefore, they will score the 15-point value and place it upon their little scorecard. After you award all the points to the birds, then you look at your card in hand. You'll add up the value of the card along with all the other bluebirds' points. Whoever has the most points wins. So this may seem like a simple game at first because you're only playing one card each turn. However, the interesting part is the hand management mechanism where you have to keep one card at the end, and figuring out which card is going to score you the most points becomes even more difficult the closer you get towards the end of the game. So that's why I really like Songbirds. Well, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Happy breakfast, everybody. Today I'm here to talk to you about when two things that are very close to my heart come together. And that's board games and food. Whether it's kind of small and healthy, like Sushi Go Party, or it's kind of greasy with a lot of cheese, like New York Slice, food has managed to make its mark on board games. A lot of people in this hobby, including myself, are fans of Seven Wonders, but I've found that the theme can actually put off some new to the hobby. Apparently, Sushi with Faces doesn't put them off at all, and that's why Sushi Go Party is an amazing game to play with people. The way every game you have to create a menu with different types of the sushi, you've got the green tea ice cream, all different elements that you can combo together for a menu that you then play with cards-wise. When it comes to a game that oozes theme, it has to be New York Slice. From the way you open the box, it's like a pizza box. You look in and on the top is a menu. Oh no, wait, that's the rule book. Then you've got the actual pieces, the actual slices that you make and form the pizza with. The theme continues because anchovies lose you points, which some people aren't happy with, but pepperoni means you can eat them straight away and bag yourself points. And wait for the bombshell, even someone like myself who doesn't like pizza still enjoys this game. Anyway, thanks for listening to me waffle on about food in board games, and I'm Oliver East, signing out.
I was definitely in the house, and you definitely did knock on the door, and don't tell me that no one was at home.
Hey, this is Mike with the Board Game Makeover. In this episode, I'm going to show you one of my new favorite games. That's right. What you don't see here is called Gloomhaven. Why is it not here? I went to this amazing new 4X Con last weekend, and I left it there. A friend of mine picked it up, it's at his house. I came across a YouTuber named Gaming Geek who has a video called Blinging Gloomhaven. He calls himself the King of Bling. I was very intrigued. I wanted to find out more, and this is what I discovered. We've all heard of Hearst Arts, where you can make your own molds for many 3D games, mostly adventure, D&D. Gaming Geek took the Hearst Arts and created scenarios for Gloomhaven. But that's not all he did. As you can tell from the video, he's a miniatures painter and a very good one. Well, he had painted Conan miniatures, Black Plague miniatures, and Shadow Brimstone's miniatures. That way he had many miniatures that he can put inside the game to replace the standees. He also has many D&D miniatures, and he also painted the unlockable heroes, and he'd much rather have them painted and ready for the game as needed. For storage, he also stored all the boards in a file system, and he used a CD holder for monster cards. He uses dice instead of hit point markers, and he made his own foam inserts to hold everything. At the last Origins, I was able to pick up an insert for Gloomhaven from Meeple Realty, and it's amazing and fabulous. Well, I can't wait to get my Gloomhaven game back from my friend, which should be in a couple days. And I really can't wait to start using the Hearst Art system to make my games 3D, because I think 3D is an amazing way to go to make any game better when it comes to theme. Well, thanks for watching the Board Game Makeover. I will see you next time.
So what's your favourite con? My favourite con is the long con, because I don't even like board games. I'm in this for the women and the money and something to do with robbing a casino, I guess. Aircon, that's my favourite convention. I do love Dice Tower Con, and it's really good because it forces you to play games, because if you were to go outside for any length of time, you would die of exposure. But Aircon, which is on March 9th, 10th and 11th in Harrogate, which is a little bit fancy, I'll have you know, is just brilliant. It's for the whole family, and while there's loads of stuff you could buy, it really is focused on playing games, which I like, obviously. It's got a big board game library, it's got a bring and buy, it's got mugs, and I love mugs. No pun included are going to be there, which is pretty cool. And Rodney Smith from Watch It Played is going to be there, which is also pretty cool. And if you get a rule wrong, he will hunt you down and kill you like a moose. That famous Canadian saying. And I'm not affiliated with Aircon in any way, other than I know the organisers and I am volunteering there. But I'm not making none of that sweet Aircon money. I just really enjoy it and urge you to go if you get chance. So, if you're there, then say hello, and I'll say goodbye. Which is awkward, I guess.
And that's it for another Board Game Breakfast. Thank you to all my contributors who do such a fantastic job. Like I say all the time, these guys do this faithfully each week. You'll see different sections. Sometimes people, they come, they go, new ones come, old ones leave. Some have been doing it for years and years. Let them know when you think they do a great job. Tell them in the comments. Say, hey, so-and-so, you did a fantastic job on your segment. They always appreciate feedback like that. I think they do a great job. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. Remember, my Q&A will be later on this week. Just watch your channel for when that will be announced. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.